Have you ever witnessed a moment where a child's innocence turned the tables on corruption? A 3-year-old black boy points at a police officer in the courtroom and says 2 words. What happens next is unbelievable. The silence in the Oakwood District Court was broken abruptly on that rainy Tuesday afternoon. The austere hall with its dark wood walls and benches arranged in neat rows was unusually crowded for what many considered just another routine hearing. It's him, Mom. 2 simple words uttered with the surprising clarity of a 3-year-old child. Little Isaiah pointed his finger directly at Officer Thomas Reeves, who had just walked through the side door with other officers from the Oakwood Police Department. Officer Reeves' face, normally impassive after 15 years of service, instantly changed. First surprise, then something more disturbing. Fear. His hands, which had been firmly holding his police badge just seconds ago, began to shake visibly. Tanya Wilson, a 28-year-old single mother, tried to calm her son, pulling him gently onto her lap. "Show Isaiah, we can't point at people," she whispered, mortified by the curious glances now turning toward them. But Isaiah would not calm down. "It's him, Mommy. The bad man from Grandma's house." The child's voice echoed through the silent courtroom, every word perfectly audible to the back row. Judge Wilson, known for his impatience with interruptions, banged his gavel. Court is in session. His piercing eyes fixed first on the agitated child, then on the visibly shaken officer. Tanya had brought Isaiah because she had no one to leave him with. She was there only as a witness in a robbery case that had occurred near her convenience store 6 months earlier. A case with no apparent connection to Officer Reeves, or so everyone thought. Can you believe a child's words could unravel a web of lies? District Attorney Eleanor Hayes, who was organizing her notes for the next case, watched the officer's unusual reaction with growing interest. 15 years as a prosecutor had taught her to recognize guilt when she saw it. And what she saw now set off all her internal alarms. "Let's take a 10-minute break," the judge announced, sensing the growing tension. "Officer Reeves, I'd like to speak with you in my chambers." As the officer limped slightly toward the judge's chamber, Prosecutor Hayes discreetly approached Tanya. "Ms. Wilson, right? Can we talk for a moment?" Tanya nodded nervously, still trying to calm Isaiah, who kept his eyes fixed on the departing police officer. "Has your son had any previous contact with Officer Reeves?" Hayes asked quietly. "Not that I know of," Tanya replied, confused. "We're only here because of the armed robbery. The robbers wore masks. I never saw their faces." "But your mother, where does she live?" "Eldridge Grove, across town. My mother was mugged a few months ago. She's 72 and has lived alone since my father passed away." It was traumatic for her, but Tanya's voice faltered as she made the connection. The officers who responded to the incident said they were just teenagers from the neighborhood. One of them was limping. They both looked at the door through which Officer Reeves had left. His uneven gait now loaded with a whole new meaning. In the minutes that followed, something extraordinary began to happen. Prosecutor Hayes made an urgent phone call, speaking in a low voice and gesturing emphatically. 2 federal agents entered the courtroom discreetly, positioning themselves strategically near the exits. Officer Reeves' cell phone, left on the table, began to ring incessantly. What no one knew at that moment was that the 2 simple words of a 3-year-old child were about to unleash the largest police corruption investigation in Oakwood's history. And as everyone returned to their seats, one question hung silently in the air. How could such a small child recognize a face he was supposed to have never seen before? If this story is already stirring your emotions, don't forget to subscribe to Black Voices to find out how a moment of childlike courage would trigger an investigation that would reveal secrets kept for years in the shadows of the system that was supposed to protect the citizens of Oakwood. In the 48 hours following the courtroom incident, Tanya Wilson lives between fear and hope. Prosecutor Hayes had ordered immediate protection for her, Isaiah, and his elderly mother. 2 plainclothes officers took turns in an unmarked car outside her apartment in the modest Oakwood Heights housing project. "Mommy, why are those men always watching our house?" Isaiah asked as he drew quietly at the kitchen table, his innocence intact despite the chaos he had unleashed. "They're protecting us, sweetheart," Tanya replied, trying to maintain normalcy as her world was turned upside down. What had started as a simple witness statement in a robbery case now placed her at the center of something much bigger and more dangerous. Her phone vibrated. It was Prosecutor Hayes again. Third call that day. "Ms. Wilson, I need you to come to my office tonight. We've discovered something." The prosecutor's normally controlled voice carried an undeniable urgency. "Bring your son and don't tell anyone where you're going." The district attorney's office was eerily quiet. At 8:30 p.m., Hayes led Tanya and Isaiah down a side hallway to a secluded conference room. Inside, a middle-aged man with graying hair waited, his face lined with experience, but with kind eyes that lit up when he saw Isaiah. "This is Detective Marcus Johnson, retired Internal Affairs," Hayes introduced him. "He's been working unofficially on something I think you need to see." Johnson opened a laptop. "For the past 3 years, I've been gathering evidence on a group of Oakwood police officers involved in a series of robberies targeting elderly Black and Latino residents." His voice was calm, but charged with contained outrage. "Always the same patterns, always the same districts, always the same officers responding first to the calls." The screen showed photos of Officer Reeves and 3 other officers at various crime scenes, including Tanya's mother's house. They pick out elderly people who live alone, study their routines, and strike when they know there's money in the house, like Pension Day. Then they're the first to respond to the scene, making sure any incriminating evidence disappears, Johnson explained, clicking through more photos. "The problem has always been proving it. No one could identify them because they wore masks. No one until Isaiah." Tanya felt a chill. But how could Isaiah? "Children that age have an extraordinary perception for details that adults often overlook," interrupted a woman entering the room. Dr. Amara Davis, forensic child psychologist, she introduced herself, sitting down next to Isaiah. "They notice patterns of movement, tones of voice, unique mannerisms. Your son probably recognized something in Officer Reeves that the adults couldn't." Meanwhile, across town, Officer Thomas Reeves was sitting in a dark bar with 3 other men. All police officers, all visibly tense. "It's just a coincidence. Just a kid talking nonsense," Reeves argued, downing his 3rd whiskey. "Nothing's going to happen." "You saw the feds in court," Thomas, the oldest of the group, Sergeant Peterson, retorted. "That's nothing. Hayes is digging. And that damn Marcus Johnson was seen at the district attorney's office today. Johnson's retired. He has no jurisdiction or credibility. He's considered a paranoid old man," Reeves said, trying to control the tremor in his hands. "Besides, Chief Rivera is on our side. He always has been." "For now," Peterson muttered. "But if this gets to the media," Reeves slammed his cup down on the table. "It was just a kid pointing a finger. The word of a 3-year-old against 4 decorated police officers. Who do you think they're going to believe?" That same night, Dr. Davis conducted a special session with Isaiah, using dolls and toys to help him express what he had witnessed. With the camera rolling discreetly, she asked, "Isaiah, can you show me what the bad man did at Grandma's house?" Isaiah picked up a police doll and limped it across the table. Then, with disturbing precision, he mimicked someone yelling at an elderly woman, demanding money. "He talked like this," he said, changing his childish voice to a rougher tone, "and he hit Grandma when she couldn't find the money fast enough." Tanya covered her mouth in horror. The child had never mentioned these details before. "There's something else you need to see," Johnson said, rummaging through a folder. "This is too interesting a coincidence to ignore." He showed them bank records showing substantial cash deposits into the accounts of the 4 officers, always 2 days after the reported robberies. "The problem is we need more than coincidences. We need concrete evidence that connects Reeves directly to the crime," Hayes said. "Something a jury can't ignore." Just then, Isaiah, who had been playing quietly in the corner of the room, suddenly stood up. "Mommy, the bad man dropped this," he said, gesturing toward something on the floor at Grandma's house. It was shiny. The adults exchanged puzzled glances. "What shiny thing, sweetie?" Tanya asked gently. "The same thing he had here," Isaiah replied, pointing to a photo of Officer Reeves on the laptop, where a personalized merit badge gleamed on his lapel. The silence in the room was absolute. If Reeves' badge had been found at the crime scene and disappeared during the official investigation, this could be the evidence that would definitively connect the officer to the robbery. His mother's house, Hayes said, a sudden urgency in his voice. Does she still live there? Did the police conduct a thorough search after the robbery? Yes, she still lives there. And no, they were superficial in their search. They said it was a routine case of neighborhood teenagers breaking into a house. The look Hayes, Johnson, and Davis exchanged said it all. If the badge was still there, hidden somewhere in the old woman's house, they would have the physical evidence they needed to take down not only Reeves, but potentially the entire criminal enterprise. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to anyone in the group, Police Chief Rivera signed an urgent transfer order for Officer Reeves' destination, a small police station on the Mexican border. The transfer would take effect in 72 hours, enough time for any preliminary investigation to lose its prime suspect. What none of them could have predicted was that the little hand that pointed to a corrupt police officer in court was about to unleash not only the downfall of a few dishonest officers, but expose an entire system built on prejudice and the exploitation of the most vulnerable. At Tanya's mother's house, a meticulous search began at 5:30 in the morning. Prosecutor Hayes had obtained an emergency warrant signed by a federal judge that bypassed local jurisdiction, a crucial detail that would prevent the Oakwood Police Department from interfering. For 2 hours, the team of forensic investigators combed every inch of the small apartment. Nothing, Johnson sighed, looking defeated for the first time. If the badge was here, it's been removed. That's when Isaiah, who had been watching with wide eyes, tugged at Dr. Davis's sleeve. The shiny thing fell here, he said, pointing to a small gap between the old couch and the wall. It made a noise when it hit the floor. The investigators moved the heavy furniture carefully. Nothing visible, but when they used a small fiber optic camera to examine the crack in the baseboard, there it was. Officer Reeves' personalized badge lying in a small opening between the floor and the wall with his initials TR engraved on the back. "We've got you now," Hayes murmured, his eyes shining with determination as he held the evidence with tweezers and placed it in a plastic bag. What happened in the next 24 hours seemed like a fast-forward action movie. While Prosecutor Hayes requested arrest and search warrants for the homes of the 4 suspected officers, Chief Rivera was in his office preparing the paperwork for Reeves' immediate transfer. "That damn kid," Rivera muttered to himself, unaware that his secretary was listening through the half-open door. 15 years building this scheme, and a 3-year-old is going to ruin it all. His secretary, Sandra Pearson, had worked for the department for 2 decades. Always loyal, always quiet. But that morning, she did something different. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she had saved for years, but never had the courage to use, the FBI tip line. The local digital newspaper, the Oakwood Herald, received an anonymous tip at 2 p.m. By 3 p.m., they had published a story questioning Officer Reeves' sudden transfer. By 4 p.m., major national news outlets were already speculating about the case involving a 3-year-old who identified a corrupt police officer. Sergeant Peterson was driving to an emergency meeting at the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town when he saw the first FBI cars blocking the entrance. He tried to turn around, but it was too late. That same evening, Officer Reeves was watching the news in his apartment, a half-packed suitcase by the door. His phone rang incessantly. Calls from Peterson, from the police association's lawyer, from Chief Rivera. He ignored them all. "We are live in front of the Oakwood Police Department where federal agents have just entered with search and arrest warrants," the reporter announced. Sources confirmed that the investigation involves a series of robberies targeting elderly Black and Latino residents. The doorbell rang. Reeves knew who it was before he even opened the door. The next morning, the front page of the Oakwood Herald splashed a photo of 4 handcuffed police officers being escorted out of the department. The caption read, "Truth from the mouth of a child. Police corruption scheme exposed by 3-year-old boy." In federal court a week later, Judge Martha Coleman looked sternly at the defendants. The courtroom was packed, victims, families, reporters, and in the front row, Tanya Wilson holding Isaiah on her lap. "These men swore to protect and serve," Prosecutor Hayes declared in her opening statement. "Instead, they exploited their authority to terrorize the most vulnerable among us. They selected elderly, predominantly Black and Latino victims, believing they would be easy targets, that their voices would never be heard. She paused, turning to look at Isaiah. They didn't count on the voice of a child, a voice that knew no prejudice, knew no fear, and recognized the truth when it saw it. The trial lasted only 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming: the badge found, bank records, testimony from other victims who finally felt safe to speak, and Isaiah's surprisingly clear testimony given in a special room adapted for children. When the final verdict was read, guilty on all counts, a reverent silence fell over the room, and then slowly an elderly woman in the second row began to clap. Soon, the entire gallery joined in a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. Outside the courtroom, under the incessant flash of cameras, a reporter approached Tanya. "How does it feel to know that your son has changed an entire system?" Tanya looked at Isaiah, who was playing obliviously with a small fire truck, completely unaware that he had become a symbol of justice and change. "I think that's what we need to learn," she replied, her voice gaining strength with every word. "To see the world through the eyes of a child without prejudice, without fear of pointing the finger at what's wrong, even when wrong wears a uniform and carries a badge." The camera focused on Isaiah playing peacefully. While in the background, families of victims hugged each other, many in tears. Some held photos of elderly relatives who had not lived to see this day of justice. From a small child's gesture, a revolution was now born that was much greater than anyone could have imagined. 6 months after the trial that shook Oakwood, the city had been transformed. What had started with 2 simple words from a 3-year-old child had triggered profound structural changes in the criminal justice system. The Isaiah program, as it was officially named, now required that all investigations involving minorities be automatically supervised by an independent civilian committee. Live streaming body cameras became mandatory, and a pioneering artificial intelligence-based pattern detection system identified suspicious behavior among officers. "I never imagined that my son would change laws," Tanya Wilson said during the inauguration ceremony for the new Community Justice Center named after Isaiah. Now working as a coordinator for a program that brings police and marginalized communities together, she had found her true calling. Across town, through the bars of the Federal Maximum Security Penitentiary, former officer Thomas Reeves watched the ceremony on a small TV in the common area. His 25-year sentence without the possibility of parole seemed even heavier as he watched little Isaiah, now 4, cut the ribbon with colorful plastic scissors. "Turn that off," muttered former Chief Rivera, also serving time in the same prison complex. His once perfectly dyed hair now showed growing white roots, a small symbol of the dignity he had lost along with his criminal empire. The investigation had uncovered that the scheme targeting elderly Black and Latino people had been going on for more than a decade. More than 50 police officers had been fired and 11 were serving significant sentences. The $12 million recovered from offshore accounts went into a compensation fund for victims. "The Isaiah case changed everything," explained Hayes, now Attorney General, in her lecture at Harvard Law School. "It forced us to recognize that prejudice is not just an individual problem, but a systemic one. When entire institutions are built on prejudice, they fail precisely those they are meant to protect most." Tanya's mother, recovered from her trauma, became a powerful advocate for elderly crime victims. Her testimony before Congress was crucial to the passage of the Vulnerable Communities Act. Retired Detective Johnson finally received the recognition he deserved. After years of being called paranoid and difficult, he was awarded the Civilian Medal of Honor and invited to lead the Police Reform Commission. Isaiah grew up oblivious to his fame. For him, police officers were no longer threatening figures. The new generation of officers trained under strict anti-bias protocols frequently visited his school for educational sessions. "Children see the truth that adults often ignore," Dr. Davis observed in her new best-selling book on child perception. "They are not blinded by uniforms, status, or power. They see people as they really are." On the last day of the school year, Isaiah's teacher asked each child what they wanted to be when they grew up. When it was his turn, he answered without hesitation. "I want to be a judge to make sure everyone is treated equally." The room erupted in applause, though Isaiah didn't fully understand why. To him, it was simply the right thing to do. On a cold winter morning, 2 years after the landmark trial, Tanya found an envelope in the mail. Inside was a substantial compensation check and a letter. It was from Sandra Pearson, Chief Rivera's former secretary, who now ran the Whistleblower Protection Program. I spent years in silence, witnessing injustice out of fear, she wrote. Your son taught me that courage has no age. Sometimes it takes just 2 simple words to change the world. He did. Tanya smiled as she watched Isaiah playing in the yard with his new friend, the son of one of the retired police officers now working with the community program. The children ran carefree, unaware of the barriers they had broken down together. True justice, Tanya reflected, is not just about punishing the guilty, but about building a world where our children can grow up without fear of those who swear to protect them. Isaiah's story reminds us that sometimes it takes the innocence of a child to expose the hardest truths. In a world of adult complexities and broken systems, perhaps our greatest hope lies in the simplicity of truth seen through eyes that have not yet learned to look away. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Black Voices for more stories that reveal how small acts of courage can spark monumental change. Leave a comment if you've witnessed moments when innocence triumphed over corruption, and share to inspire others to find their own voice. Because the truth, as we've seen, knows no age, size, or social standing.